this story, I spoke to the Liberal front bench, Shadow Assistant Treasurer Senator Mathias Cormann earlier from Melbourne.
Well, I mean, let's just be very clear here. We've said for some time that the mining tax was not going to raise the revenue the government said it would raise. We've got to remember that when Kevin Rudd first announced the RSPT, it was going to raise $37 billion. When Julia Gillard and Wayne Swan first negotiated the mining tax deal exclusively and in secret with the three biggest miners, they said it would raise $22.5 billion over the 4 years of the current forward estimates. By budget time, that went down to $13.4 billion. By MAIFO on Monday, by $9 billion, and it now looks like it's not going to raise anything at all. I mean, I'm not surprised that the three big miners who did the deal with Julia Gillard and Wayne Swan would try to give Wayne Swan a little bit of political cover. The truth of the matter is that if the three biggest mining companies that had the privilege of sitting around the table with the Prime Minister and the Treasurer negotiating the design of this tax, if they decide to take full advantage of all of the features in their mining tax deal with the government, they will not be paying any mining tax for a very long time.
You're saying that the mining tax isn't going to generate any revenue, but the companies, as I understand it, are indicating that that the first quarter results aren't going to affect the annual forecast. Therefore, the mid-year budget update remains valid.
Well, what we know is that on Monday, when the first instalment of the mining tax was due, not a single cent in mining tax revenue was collected by the government. Now, it's no wonder that Wayne Swan was so desperate to rush the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook out the door so quickly, because he clearly didn't want to be forced to reflect that information in his budget update.
But isn't this the way that mining tax, the profits-based tax, is meant to work? When profits are coming in, the taxes are paid, and when they're not, like we're seeing at the moment, if the commodity prices have come off as they have, that the taxes aren't paid. Doesn't that make this a more efficient style of tax?
The mining tax is in a complete mess. There's nothing efficient in it whatsoever. You might still be under the misunderstanding that somehow the mining tax is somehow related to the Henry Review recommendation, which was that a profit-based tax replaces state and territory royalties. That is not the case. This mining tax comes on top of state and territory royalties.
Isn't there a contradiction, though, at the heart of the coalition criticism that this is such a bad and evil tax that is going to bring down the industry, kill the goose that laid the golden egg on the one hand, but then on the other you're saying it's not going to raise a dollar?
Well, I mean, the thing is this. Like when this whole tax review process started, which is of course in complete chaos now, we've seen the Business Tax Working Group yesterday essentially put up the white flag. But we've got to remember that this whole process started with the proposition that we needed to make our tax system simpler, fairer, more efficient, less distorting. The mining tax is more complex, it is less fair, it is more distorting, it is less efficient, it is costly to administer, and on top of all of that, it doesn't raise any revenue. So here we've got all of the uncertainty that was imposed on an important sector in our economy. You've got all of these additional compliance costs, all of this additional red tape, and there's actually no upside for the government. I mean, honestly, you couldn't make this up. I mean, what does Wayne Swan expect us to believe? I mean, no wonder that he's been trying to keep his commodity price assumptions secret. No wonder he hasn't been prepared to release his production volume assumptions. No wonder he wanted to rush out MAIFO out the door on Monday before people realized that not a single cent in mining tax revenue had actually been collected by the government.
And onto the Business Tax Working Group, the coalition blocked the government's efforts to reduce the company tax rate, indicated that you weren't going to support it through the parliament, so stopped the government's efforts to reduce the company tax rate, and now the coalition's critical of this of the Business Tax Working Group for not achieving a way forward. Isn't that hypocritical?
The coalition said then, and the coalition says now, that we support company tax cuts. We did not support a company tax cut which was linked to the mining tax, which it was always highly questionable as to whether it would actually raise any revenue at all. We said at the time that we were opposed to the mining tax because in our judgment the mining tax is bad for Australia, it's bad for our economy, and it came out of a very bad process, and we were opposed, and we opposed in the Parliament all of the measures that were attached to it. And incidentally, the government never even put company tax cuts forward in legislation, even though they had promised it. Now, 2 months ago, Julia Gillard promised business a company tax cut by Christmas. All business got from this government is $8.3 billion in company taxes brought forward in order to help Wayne Swan plug yet another budget black hole. Business knows that they can't trust this government. From this government, they got a carbon tax, they got $8.3 billion in company taxes brought forward, they got no company tax cuts. The only way you can actually deliver a company tax cut sustainably is by identifying savings in the budget to pay for it, and by growing our economy more strongly. To try and raise an additional tax in order to pay for a tax cut, that is not a tax cut, that is just a con.
But isn't that what the coalition is doing? Isn't the coalition's credibility on the company tax issue diminished by the fact that the coalition would, if you're elected, introduce a 1.5% levy onto the biggest companies to pay for Tony Abbott's paid parental leave scheme?
We have said very clearly that we will be delivering modest company tax cuts without a mining tax, and we will be delivering income tax cuts without a carbon tax. We do have a commitment to a fair income paid parental leave scheme because we think that is a very important productivity measure. And obviously the information on how that is going to be funded is out there for all to see. We're entirely transparent around that, and we are entirely consistent with the way that we have been pursuing that argument. The key problem with this government is that they said they would pursue genuine tax reform to make our tax system simpler, fairer, more efficient and less distorting. What we've got is more complex, it is more distorting, it is costly to administer, both for businesses and for the government, and it doesn't raise any money.
Senator Cormann, Shadow Assistant Treasurer, I appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for that.
Good to be here.
More on the mining tax after the break and the other issues of the day, in fact, with our panel, Nikki Sava and Shane Wright.